I'm so tired of people saying that it's just a movie, it's just a comic book, it's just a TV show. No, it's not. Stories are the building blocks of our culture, of ourselves, even of our own psychology. We are a product of the stories we tell ourselves about our own past and the experiences on a daily basis, but also the stories that we choose to spend time with. What types of values, our feelings, or whatever are they promoting? What types that we like to spend our time around? They're going to shape us. They're going to shape our personality and character, and they're going to shape our perception of the world and the acts and behaviors that we put out into the world. And people don't understand that. They go, it's just a movie. It's just this. I can like and promote whatever I want. Well, of course you can, but you should pay attention to the responsibility that you have.
Consume stories responsibly.
As a member of society, as a human being, responsibility to yourself.
Consider the consequences.
You need some balance. You need some certain criteria that is going to make sure you're promoting the right kind of works, or at least have thought through the type of work that this or that story is going to do in our culture, and then make your own decision whether or not that's something you want to support.
Consume stories responsibly. Consider the consequences. Consume stories responsibly.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully the audio is coming through with no issues tonight. Let's see. Whoa, we got a lot of chat activity going on already. Great to see everybody. Welcome back to another Office Hours stream. We are thoroughly in the Halloween season now. As you can see, we put up our decorations, and Alyssa got to help me decorate, and inside and outside. Started listening to the Halloween playlist. We're set, all ready for spooky season. And it's so nice too. Here, the weather's starting to finally relent a little bit. It was nice today. It's getting cooler, and the nights are really cool, which is great. So that's going well. Let's see. Welcome to everybody who's here. Good. Audio's great. That's good to know. Looks like Nathaniel Zalozball was here first. Good to see you there. Crystal Ashes, thank you so much. You said I'll put the super chat up here. You're not able to watch tonight. It's a belated happy birthday. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was a great birthday week. It was really great. I hope you have a lovely stream tonight. Sadly, won't be able to attend, but I'll be sure to watch the playback. I appreciate that. I did have to look up how much 1500 ISK was, which I think is about $10. So very much appreciated. Always appreciated. Especially the, I do my channel for, as a hobby, as make it to be interesting to me and fun for me to do. And educational. I try to, share some knowledge that people will be interested in. But I'm just never going to chase algorithms or, occasionally when I am interested in talking about something that happens to be a hot button issue, tons of traffic. The views are up, I'll get tons of super chats, and that's right, Provident. I could be on here now going, guys, they canceled the Acolyte Season 2. We're winning. You keep those super chats coming, guys. We're fighting the culture war. I could be doing that crap, but it's insincere. It's just a money grubbing scheme. So I hate woke Disney, as I've said, but that's just the whole thing. But anyway, so I talk about things I'm interested in, and right now I'm thoroughly interested in going into the iconic monsters and what makes these monsters iconic. And we've been covering everything since the French Revolution, really going through the historical, cultural period of it, and talking about the seminal works of literature. We talked about Frankenstein. We talked about Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Just finished up Dracula with my Dracula analysis video this last week. So it's always appreciative, those of you who keep tuning in week after week, and are hanging out going on this journey with me. It's much appreciated. So thank you for that. Ghost Planet Max Inc. is in here too. Eldridge fan, great to see you there. A lot of talk about the Blumhouse nonsense. Yeah, I saw that too, that they were doing a Wolfman movie. Anytime Blumhouse is involved in anything, you can know for certain that all they're doing is taking something culturally that was once culturally popular, that has enough member berries attached to it, and they're going to remake it in an attempt to make a socio-political agenda comment. That's what they did with Invisible Man. That's what their Halloween garbage is. That's what the Wolfman's going to be. That's what their was it Blumhouse that did Jekyll and Hyde? No, I don't think it was that. There was a ridiculous tranny version of Jekyll and Hyde. All these remakes, they're not interested in the stories. They're not interested in the horror stories and what makes them stick in our culture, what makes them relevant. They're only interested in taking something that will have enough people paying attention to it and using it as a platform for them to preach. Nothing new. They've been doing that with geek culture forever. So yeah, I couldn't even care less about the whole Blumhouse nonsense. Electric Barbarella, great to see you there. Electric Barbarella sent me a picture. I don't have it queued up now. I have to show it later, but a video even of the large animatronic Frankenstein. So that was cool. I just messaged you back about that the other night. Private Eye in Retrospectivo, welcome, welcome. Darth Enigma, of course, my dear sweet sound engraver. Yes, it's September. Fall is coming. Yes, yes, yes. Of course, I would like it to get here faster. I would like things to be even cooler now, but it's nice to have some reprieve from the awful humidity. There was this is applicable to a lot of different states, I'm sure, but there was one of those memes that go around like the seasons. And anytime you're in the South, you get these like crazy nature of the seasons. And it said the seasons in the South, or especially around the area that I'm in, and it was like winter, spring, summer, hell's front porch, false fall, second summer, before you actually get to fall. And we had hell's front porch, man. That was nasty, nasty, nasty. Electric Barbarella said thought the Invisible Man was okay. I never saw it because I just won't give it a chance. I don't care about that company, but so that to say, I didn't see it. If there was likable elements in it, maybe, I don't know. Andre Hernandez, I have not. I've got my ticket tomorrow. I'm going with my mother and my niece tomorrow to see Beetlejuice, and I'm so crazy excited. I hope I'm not let down. Like I said, again, I think worst case scenario, it just might not be classic Burton quality. I'm not expecting it to be the classic that the original was. You'll never touch that. But I'm hoping that it's some throwback to some real good. I hope it's Burton doing what Burton does best, and Keaton doing what Keaton does best. I hope it's the real deal. So I'm not worried about it being woke or anything because Burton's never done that. So I'm excited. I will do a little bit of maybe I can just do like a little quick phone video reaction wise, but I'll do some kind of review of it definitely. Welcome to Ace Moick, Horrid Films, Tony. Great to see everybody there. Another super chat here. Studio Super, welcome. Said it's trippy to see Halloween getting the Christmas treatment. Halloween getting the Christmas treatment. What do you mean? You mean the season in general? Or are you talking about the movies? Or you mean like you mean like my lights and everything here? Yeah. I got purple and orange lights. We decorate up big time. See, with Alyssa, with her autism, she hates change. And it used to be that for Christmas, I just always decorated big for the holidays. And, putting up, my mother does this too at her place. And just, I love going over to my mother's house when she's decorated because it looks like the people have said it's the house where Christmas threw up. It's like a winter wonderland. It's everything. And Alyssa will get accustomed to that, to the decorations being up. And it's a big deal when it's time to take that stuff down. And I get it, because even me as a neurotypical person, I hate it when the Christmas decorations come down. Everything just looks so bare and depressing, So I started just always decorating for whatever the next holiday is. And that helps Alyssa out deal with the change, because it's just a change in the decorations. It's not this suddenly barren, wall or house. So we go from the Halloween decorations to fall Thanksgiving decorations, to Christmas decorations, to Valentine's Day decorations. I think St. Patrick's Day is the next decorations we do. Easter decorations, of course. We might do some sort of generic spring decorations. We end up doing, of course, American flag and American decorations, which you can just have as a patriotic American, but for 4th of July, and then keep that up right until Halloween again. So, we just keep it festive. Welcome, Leia Plus Size. Tom Spiegel, the imaginative hobbyist. Great to see everybody. Welcome, Iron Rex. So, all right. Yeah, you haven't missed anything yet, Eldritch fan. I've just been welcoming people, chatting. Big Al Presents is here. Good to see you, Big Al. Still got my Alice Cooper here, hanging out with me. I did hear about this, Andre Hernandez. Yeah, I got to say, I haven't followed Jenna Ortega at all. But that comment did show up because they were asking her typical stupid
feminist or just woke kind of question. Would you be interested in doing a female Edward Scissorhands? Because we got to remake everything that's been done in any kind of white male or heteronormative way. It's got to be remade, for diversity. And she said, no, women should have their own characters. And I'm like, thank you. That was a pretty cool thing to hear about. So, Leslie Russell, welcome there. Studio 96 Films, and another super chat. $4.99 from Studio Super. Thank you so much. So basically Halloween getting prepped months and months ahead. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. And there are memes that go around like if you can start celebrating Christmas in November, then I should certainly be able to start celebrating Halloween in December or September rather. Yeah. That's me. It's not for everybody. I get it. I'm not like one of those people like you need to celebrate. No, I just like celebrating. And I always find it really ridiculous too when people just lose their mind. Like, I can't believe the Halloween stuff's in the stores already. Oh my gosh, they got the Christmas stuff. So what? Don't buy it. Walk by it. Get over yourself. The only thing that bugs me about that is that if you don't buy what you need decoration wise early, it's gone. Like, long before the holiday even gets here. That's a little annoying, but like, oh no, it's a festive season ahead. This is the time of year where people get to celebrate and be happy. Oh, goodness. Be a Scrooge about it over there. Find something to flip out and gripe about, Eldridge fan, thank you for the super chat. I'm reading the Star Wars Invasion comic. So good. Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be. I was thinking the other day, I was putting some books back on my Star Wars EU shelf. I'm having so much fun right now covering the monsters and the monster archetypes. But yeah, I think after Christmas, I'll be returning to do some EU stuff because I miss it. I love it. There's so much. And I just love that it's there and it's always there for me to go through and that I've still got a long journey ahead. So I'm not even close to deciding what I'll do at that point. I mean, that's a ways away. But I still don't quite know what I'm going to do after Halloween. And you guys can let me know this too. If you're digging this monster content, terms like the history of horror fiction, and how it got to be to what it is today and whatnot. We're going to cover some more of that today. If there's enough interest, I might carry it after Halloween a bit. I don't know. We could do some Christmas stuff. I feel like I've talked about A Christmas Carol enough, but there's still a lot to talk about. That's the other my top novels I couldn't remember the other day when I said Dracula, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is up there too in the top 5. I've talked about it some, but there's so much cultural resonances of that. We could certainly talk about it more. So I don't know, something Christmas-wise, but yeah, you guys can let me know what kind of stuff you're enjoying on the channel and whatnot as well. So, let's see. I think we're ready to go ahead and I'll get this. General Savage said, off-topic question, what did you think of the moment in comics where Wonder Woman killed Maxwell Lord? Thought it was a misstep. I don't mind that Wonder Woman would kill in the right context. She is a warrior. She's kind of like Captain America. He's a soldier. If they're in battle on the field, Wonder Woman's an Amazon warrior. She knows how to wield these weapons. She knows how to, but in that context, it was an execution. It wasn't it was an execution. Wonder Woman should always extend her hand in peace first before she raises it to anybody. And I get the reasonings they tried to write into it, but I just thought it was a misstep. Yeah, better her than Superman certainly, but I just didn't like that. Yeah. Alrighty, let's get going here. So if you looked at the thumbnail that I have for this stream, the image on the left is an illustration. I don't know if it was a part of a playbill or part of a poster, a description or something, or advertisement, but it was for the Grand Guignol Theater. That's a hard French word to pronounce. If once you hear me talk about this at all, if you're interested in it at all, you'd want to Google theater or Théâtre du Grand Guignol, or Theater of the Grand Guignol. It's because there is a horror film, a Japanese horror film that was done in 2022 called Grand Guignol as well. But we're talking about the theater. So that's the idea that we're talking about here. And I'll get to that in a moment, but people get excited after something about superheroes. So here we go. Tom Spiegel, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Appreciate that. Elgin fan, likewise, I'm reading, Classic Star Wars run by Archie Goodwin and Al Williamson. Love that art. Yeah, those are great classic Star Wars. I will be talking about Star Wars comics a lot more. I'll be talking about the Knights of the Old Republic comics, which I've mentioned in passing a lot, but I want to go through and talk about the individual things. So many great stuff. I'm always kind of sad for people who are EU fans and who only read the novels. I get it. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But I mean, between the games and the comics, and there's a whole world of EU stuff out there you've yet to tap into. Definitely great. And Eldritch fan, thank you so much for the $4.99 there. Said some Christian boomers are mad about the early Halloween decorations, satanic and giving kids nightmares. Think of the children. Boomers are the worst. I got to stop and comment on this because I know we'll get to my content here, but this bugs me too. And it bugged me back when I was an evangelical Protestant, and it bugs me even now as a Catholic because it's every denomination. It's, when it comes to Christian religion, as a case, I'm sure it is with other Christian or other religions. But when it comes to the Christian religion, it's every denomination. There are little sects within everybody, and it's so annoying. And yeah, there's like a Catholic radio show that I listen to certain times of the week when I'm in the car, and I love the show. I like the certain day I listen to it. I love the things they have to say. But every stinking time fall comes around, they just lament, it's just so horrible, people. Why would you celebrate even the likeness of evil and blah, blah, blah? Why don't you dress up your children as saints? Isn't that a great way to celebrate? Oh, stop it. People don't get it. Yes, like anything in the world, you could celebrate Halloween in a disordered, unhealthy fashion. Of course. In fact, some of the things we're talking about tonight, the legacy of the Grand Guignol Theater that I'm going to talk about, it leaves us with a lot of people celebrating horror in a very disordered way, I think. But All Hallows Eve is part of that little mini tridium with All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, All Hallows Day, and All Souls Day. The next day after it, in terms of the Catholic saints' days there. So it's a wonderful sense of holiday. And All Hallows Eve, a time to embrace the spookiness, embrace the danger of horror, because we know that we triumph over it in the end, Anyway, we could go into a lot of talk on that, but yeah, it bugs me every time I hear, did you know that Halloween's actually a pagan holiday and and you're worshiping Satan if you let your kids trick or treat. And just so get out of here with that nonsense. I mean, again, if someone thinks that, more power to you. I respect you. I would never tell you, you need to celebrate Halloween, but, get off my back about celebrating it. That's the idea. Nathaniel Losball says there's a Christmas movie recommendation I and the chat have called, Klaus. the Netflix hand-drawn. That's right, yeah. I'm going to watch that this year. Stay on me, because I thought you were talking about a horror Krampus version, but no, Klaus, yeah. You guys have recommended that year after year, and I've heard so many good things about it, but I haven't watched it yet, and I'm going to this year because people have said it's really good, and it sounds like something I would like. So, yeah, no worries, Eldritch fan. I appreciate any of the super chats again. I'm not going to turn down super chats. And I will say this now, since Sound Engraver put it out. Just her discussion. She's going to continue her discussion about art tomorrow, talking about the silliness of modern art and some of the art that tries to go against art. Really silly stuff, but she covered that pretty well. She's going to cover more of that tomorrow, so you can check out her stream. The link is there. All right, so the Grand Guignol Theater. Maybe I should let me copy and paste it in the chat there. How to pronounce that, or how it's spelt. When I do make this a standalone video, I'll have images of it or whatever there, but let me just put it in the chat here. That's the way to spell it, the Grand Guignol Theater. So you'll see it there. Matthew Flynn says, I would love more Halloween content. It is the same month as my birthday. Awesome. Hey, well, happy soon birthday to you. Appreciate that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we're doing it definitely until Halloween. We'll see if we want to keep doing it afterwards. Definitely. Appreciate that. All right. So the Grand Guignol Theater. This was an actual theater, stage theater, that was started in 1897. I think, if I got the date right, let me look at, yeah, 1897. And we've been talking a little bit about France ever since I started talking about this history of the monsters, history of horror thing. You know, the French Revolution, we talked about that negative influence of the Enlightenment. A lot of great things came from the Enlightenment, but the French Revolution is an example of Enlightenment principles taken to their horrific extremes. We need to disavow any link with religion or cultural traditions in any way, including government, including anything, and it's all just the people. And a lot of people think, you know, if you just sort of know a cursory knowledge of European history, like with the French Revolution, that was a horrible little, horrible things happened in it, you know, whatever you think politically about it. And then we just think that was just sort of like a drop in the bucket, you know, and then the Napoleon imperial, era came. No, France kept going back and forth. In fact, when we do get to the Werewolf of Paris novel, that takes place in the French Commune era, which is just a couple years there, but they keep having this same kind of fight, especially in Paris, going back and forth, whether they want to be more communist or more, bring back, sort of some of the imperial elements or whatever. A lot of violence, a lot of really horrific things perpetrated upon the people. A lot of things, you could be suspected of being among the wrong party and put to death or imprisoned or tortured or whatever, over and over again. Things that we think about, like for, communist Russia or whatever, or Nazi Germany, still went on for a long time, different periods in France. So it was a country in which there's a lot of class conflict. Now, the Grand Guignol Theater opened, like I said, 1897, so the end of the 1800s there. Guignol is a word, and again, forgive me if my pronunciation is a little off. Obviously, I'm not a native French speaker, but Guignol was a word for puppet show. So a Guignol show was a puppet show for kids. Grand means big, and the idea behind Grand Guignol was the idea that a big, like, puppet show for big people, a puppet show for adults. The idea that this was entertainment, the type of entertainment you could go, see in a children's show, but this was going to be more adult-oriented, adult material and whatnot. The first person, Oscar Métainier, who started the Grand Guignol, started running it, started doing it as a place to showcase some of the lower classes. So he would do plays, and he would feature people like prostitutes in his plays. He would feature criminals in the plays and whatnot. And it was controversial big time, because these were the types of walks of life you didn't see on the stage, you didn't see, portrayed. He ran it that way for a couple of years, but pretty soon his successor came on. Max Maury came in just a couple years later and ran it right up until about the 19 teens. And he's the one that really turned the Grand Guignol into this sort of horrific, viscerally horrific, in terms of horror style of theater. He would do what he called hot and cold showers for the audience. He would put on a really bawdy play, a play with just really serious adult humor, completely irreverent, type of stuff, comedy-wise. And then he would do, and that would maybe the cold shower, then he would do the hot shower, or vice versa, or whatever, which is a horror play. Now, their kinds of horror, they would show really graphic things on stage, but that wasn't really the big deal. I mean, that was a big deal back in the day, but it was also completely nihilistic. For example, one of the famous plays that they did in the 1900s, when it got to that point, was a play about a man who's terrified to leave his family. He's always terrified to leave his family alone, but he gets this business trip, and he's got to go on this business trip. So he finally agrees, okay, my family's going to be okay. I've seen to them, and he goes on this business trip, and he calls his family while he's away, because the telephones had just sort of come about at that point, and he hears his family that an intruder is in the house, and he hears this intruder brutally murdering his family on the phone, and he can't get back to his family because he's so far away. All he can do is sit there and listen to it on the phone. The end. Curtain. Like, what? And it's kind of like modern art. It really is the drama version of modern art, which is like, how can we subvert expectations? How can we tear down any of the constructs and any of the, and we want to show people there's not a happy ending and blah, blah, blah. Horrible. Now, that same play was picked up by a silent film company and remade in America, especially with a happy ending, right? It's a good sort of suspense thriller. He's on the phone with his family that he's worried about leaving, and they say an intruder's in the house, and he's dashing, and he gets the police, and they get there just in time or whatever to save things. And it's not that, you can't have a story where maybe it's not a perfectly happy ending or bad things don't happen. Sure. Depending on the genre, certainly in a horror story, bad things are going to happen. But that kind of story is just a celebration of nihilism. That kind of story is really just a celebration of, haha, there's no hope. That's it. Like, what other message could you... And the Grand Guignol was all about that, especially in that term where Max Moray was running it, because it was all about just the most horrific, shocking, let's just put this on stage. No one else is doing it. They made tons of money just from the shock value of it. And it was immensely popular. And this is in France. And a lot of theorists say that, well, one of the reasons that it was so popular is because this is in the, a poorer part of town or whatever, or it attracts these lower classes who get to see the upper classes suffer. That businessman. Yeah, this rich businessman. Let's see him, watch his family murdered. Maybe a little bit of that, but I think that's just trying to apply too much meaning to this. I think it really is getting into this mindset that we have, even of some horror films fans now, where they just want to watch horrible things happen. It's just sort of this, like, you can get addicted to it. You can get addicted to the controversy of it, the taboo of it. It's almost like somebody who watches porn and gets addicted to porn. They might start out with the most vanilla, softcore porn ever, but pretty soon the dopamine isn't going to do it. They're going to need something a little more risque, and a little more. And by the end of their cycle of addiction, they're watching these horrible things, probably even illegal things that they just, never would have thought themselves getting into. But it's because your brain, once you get addicted to something, you need that little bit more of a dopamine hit. So the Grand Guignol Theater was like that. Of course, it was a theater. It wasn't film or anything. And in fact, film is one of the things that ended the Grand Guignol Theater. Eventually, you had some interesting things were done. Jacques Jouvin, I think, took over in the 30s and tried to make it more of a psychological horror idea. And there was different people that would come in and run it and try to, let's explore different ways people could die in a horror film. Weird. But eventually it died out. The theater closed. I think it was the 60s or the 70s when the theater closed down, because at that point, horror films were already doing anything that the Grand Guignol would do on stage. There's no shock value. The culture, worldwide culture, had become so desensitized at that point that the Grand Guignol was pointless. Like, what's the point? Just seeing it live on stage as opposed to a film. People would rather go see films because of the still convenience of it and everything. So I think it's an interesting parallel to what has become, my critique, even though I dearly love monster movies and I love a well-done horror film. As I've said before, I think certain horror films are wonderfully classic. But you ask yourself, what's the purpose of what you're watching? Now, there is some level of catharsis, let's say, to just sort of a mindless horror film, a level of catharsis. But there are people I've known who are like, I need to watch one of those movies every day. It's my comfort. It's what I'm into. I love that kind of stuff. Okay, what do you love about it? Like, what I love about a good monster movie is an exploration of good versus evil. What I love about a good horror film, if it's a good horror film, well-done horror film, is what it says about humanity, what it says. But these are people who just want to see people die on the screen in front of them because they're really into it. And that's where I think, okay, you're sacrificing some humanity there. You're in the Grand Guignol camp there. You're not really going into any kind of usefulness of this cultural, art. And not that, horror films, they're B horror films are horrible. Yeah, there's some guilty pleasure movies. Of course, I'm not saying that everything you watch has to be wonderfully made, art. Yeah, I get why you might watch, Slumber Party Massacre, and not always watch a Hitchcock film. Fine, if that's your thing. But again, I think, the way people keep coming back to it, and the way people are just like, that's what they are into, really can say a lot of things about you. And it's interesting that it happened in France. Of course it happened in France, where all this nonsense was going on. Now, something like that never would have flown in America, because America was, remember, when we had our revolution, heavily influenced by the Enlightenment, America never rejected the idea of God. Even with the founding fathers who weren't Christian, they were at least deists, and they still believed in a creator God, in a creator God who's good. That's one of the tenets of deism as well. And the responsibility of mankind to strive to be better. So we wouldn't have had that fly in America. And when we talk about the history or the development of monster films in America, it's very different. It owes a lot to what was going on in Europe, but it took place at a different pace. And I think because of that, in a different, unique way in the Hollywood system, which is one of the reasons why I dearly love the classic monster movies so much. We'll talk about that in a second. But let me get a couple super chats and a couple chats that were going on here. Thank you, Eldritch Fan 49 said, off topic, but will you give a spoiler-free read or pass review of that Miller Batman novel that's coming out in October? A Miller Batman novel? Oh, you mean the, is it a Miller Batman novel? Yeah, I'm going to definitely read the one that's set in the Batman Burton-verse. Are you talking about Frank Miller, though? I don't know anything about a Frank Miller Batman novel, but the one that's set in the Batman universe, who is it, man? You got me thinking about that now. Who was the author that I was really excited about that was writing that? I know you're probably putting it in the chat right now, but I've started looking it up on my own, and I must... Oh, John Jackson Miller, not Frank Miller. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the one I was talking about. John Jackson Miller. I was talking about that before. Yes, I will definitely do a review, read or pass on that, because I'm pretty excited about that. So thanks for reminding me about it. I actually forgot about it. I pre-ordered it and everything, so I'd remember it when it came to me, but I had forgotten about it, so thanks. Yeah, I definitely will be reviewing that. 499 from Studio Super, thank you so much. Said there's no hope. Fun for the whole family. Modern entertainment in a nutshell. Sometimes, yeah, it's quite ridiculous. Leah Plus Size said the plays you're talking about was referenced by Anne Rice. She said it was her inspiration for the Theater of the Vampires and the Interview with the Vampire. Yeah, it absolutely was. Now, of course, she did a different take on it with the Theater of the Vampires, but it was the same idea. Vampires mocking humanity, and it was a neat image that she did, because her image is vampires just like trying to take away everything that humanity believed in. Do you think your God's gonna save you? Nope. And even if you just saw the movie, you see that little scene they did there. They go into it far more in the novel. Thanks for bringing that up, Leah Plus Size. Yeah, but the Grand Guignol was her inspiration for that, definitely. All right. Let me just get this here before I continue. Nathaniel's Lozball says, I like monster movies because the monster can be anything, but it follows a structure. What is the monster? What can it do? Why is it dangerous? And how do the heroes beat it or escape its wrath? Yeah, I mean, you can have elemental monsters like Dracula, and you can have sympathetic monsters like Frankenstein. Just thinking about like the Hollywood Universal classic horrors. Some monsters had a lot of pathos, like Wolfman or Frankenstein. Some of them were just straight up evil, like the Invisible Man or Dracula. Yeah, you can tell so many great stories. I mean, monsters. We've told monster stories as humanity ever since the dawn of time, right? Whether you're talking about the spirit in the woods or whatever, or a proper monster or whatever. So it's really interesting. So you had things like the Grand Guignol, theater-wise. Now, we talked about Dracula that was published at the end of the 1800s as well. Film at that point was starting to come about. When films first started to happen, silent films were more of a sort of spectacle. See what we can achieve with film. Look at this, sort of magic trick kind of visual thing that it looks like that person disappeared. It looks like that, that was the kind of little short spectacles that films were. And then eventually it got to be where let's tell at least little short narratives with films. And, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, at first certainly got to be up to, hour and a half movies, silent films. In Europe, we can't talk about classic American monster movies without talking about German Expressionism. There was a really weird time in Germany between World War I and World War II. We had the Weimar Republic in power, and it was a very liberated time. Think about like the 20s in America, where sort of anything goes. That was what was happening between World War I and World War II in Germany. Now, slowly, the Nazi Party came to power, and Hitler came to power. But part of it was a visceral reaction to all of the just flagrant disregarding of morals that was going on. But you did have, in the plus side, you had a lot of great advances in art, some art anyway. And in film, we had these wonderful movies that were being made, really trying to explore what was possible with the medium of film. This is, of course, when Murnau made Nosferatu. Bram Stoker's wife was still alive at the time, Florence Stoker, and she sued them famously because they didn't ask her for the rights. They changed the names, but it was still very much the Dracula story. She won the lawsuit. They were ordered to destroy all prints of Nosferatu. Thankfully, some survived because it's a amazingly well done film. It's very well done, in terms of it's worth studying. But the things they did with the light and shadow, the things they did with not really worrying about a realistic take. This is film, and film started out, playing all these sort of visual tricks and everything. So why need to show a completely realistic story on a visual film? Why not go fantastic? And you had a lot of pioneers working to make it sort of this expressionistic take. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is the classic that people point to. And of course, the Gollum, the image I had on the right side of my screen was Der Gollum, how he came into the world. I'll talk about that in a second. Tim Burton, I'm going to see Beetlejuice tomorrow. Tim Burton is heavily influenced by the German Expressionism, the extended doorways, the askew, dressers, the buildings which are slanted, the roads which are crooked, that kind of thing is from German Expressionism. And you see that with the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. You start to see a little bit of it in the Gollum movies. Paul Wegener made a movie, The Student of Prague, which some people think is the first horror film. And then he made these Gollum movies. He made the first Gollum movie. And the idea of the Gollum is a Jewish folkloric character. This creature sort of comes from Jewish mysticism. A creature formed of clay that these special Kabbalistic prayers can be said over, and the creature comes alive to protect the Jewish people at different times in their history when they're persecuted. That's the folkloric idea of the Gollum. So Paul Wegener made this character in this film, the Gollum. It's lost. The silent film he made is completely lost to us now. He made a second film to kind of keep, because he wanted to do a big historical drama, like a period piece, and he didn't quite have the money at first. So the first movie he did was sort of an art dealer, I think, finding the Gollum in a basement warehouse or whatever in the 20s there. Then the second movie he did was a really interesting sort of meta film. It's called The Gollum and the Dancing Girl. And it was an interesting film. You think about movies we have today, like Scream, which references horror movies and the tropes of horror movies, or Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was what if Freddy was coming out of the movies and they had to go make another movie to contain Freddy? That was an interesting take. But this silent film in the 20s by Paul Wegener he was the guy who did the Gollum. So he said, let me make a movie about this woman, this dancer, who goes to see the movie that I made. So the movie Gollum and the Dancing Girl is the second film in this Gollum trilogy. It too has been lost to us tragically. A lot of these early films, they weren't cared for. They were done in certain films that didn't last. They were lost, and there's a lot of lost classics, sadly. But he made this movie, and the premise is this dancer girl, this girl goes to see his movie, The Gollum. and she's just fascinated by the character of the Gollum. She's just fascinated by that character to the point where she's almost in love with this creature, the Gollum, this big clay creature. Now, Paul Wegener, the director, he plays in the movie as the director of the Gollum, and he tries to hit on her, basically. She turns down his advances, so he thinks, fine. So he has a gift, a life-size statue of the Gollum shipped to her, and it's actually him in costume. And then he slowly comes to life, and she's elated because she can, be in love with this Gollum figure. It was a weird, trippy movie. It's not, existent today, sadly, but it's a very meta, type film. And then he finally, because of all that, he finally had the money to do the Gollum, How He Came Into the World, which is the prequel. It's also the first horror prequel. So it's like the first horror trilogy. The last one's the first horror prequel, which did finally go back in time into the medieval times there in Germany and tell the story of the original Jewish mystic who, brought this Gollum to life and so forth. It's a classic film, and that film is still existent. Is in existence. You can still go watch that. With a lot of these silent films, they are in public domain, which means you're going to get a lot of crappy prints and stuff like that. Even though I'm usually not so gung-ho about, you got to get the Blu-ray or the 4K. When it comes to a lot of those silent films, your best bet is getting a Blu-ray or 4K or, at least a Blu-ray, because you've got somebody who's cleaned up, the print of it, because otherwise you can get a lot of prints that aren't, done very well and are kind of hard to watch. But, so Nosferatu, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, the Gollum, Metropolis, certainly. A lot of films that were made at that time were heavily influenced the filmmakers in Hollywood who came about in the 30s. And some of the filmmakers in Germany even fled Germany once the Nazis came to power, like Karl Freund, who came over. He was the cinematographer on Dracula. He was the director of The Mummy, for Universal. He was from, Germany. He was working with the Impressionists. And you see a lot of that, or expressionists, excuse me, and you see a lot of German expressionism in the early American monster films. The idea of, the castles, twisted and high vaulted ceilings and all this kind of stuff. So you see a lot of that influence there as well. What's interesting about horror films in America, all of the silent films we had that could be considered horror were never truly supernatural. Remember when I was talking about Gothic novels and the different tropes of Gothic novels and how that influence has stayed with us even to today? There is a, was it called Gothic? There was a movie I've missed, but people have been telling me I really need to see it, that had Tom Hiddleston and what's her name? Was it Ron Howard's daughter was in it too? I think it was called Gothic or called something like that. Or Crimson, I forget what it was called, but it came out just a few years ago. People were saying that's really good, but it's a Gothic movie. In the 2000s, that movie Skeleton Key, I think with Kate Hudson, was she in it? Came out, another Gothic movie, Gothic American South movie, was these really great movies. So the Gothic is still with us in film, in Hollywood film, and they were heavily, early Hollywood movies, silent films were heavily influenced by Gothic. You would have a lot of movies like The Cat and the Canary, which seemed to be supernatural. Things were going on, but then in the end, it was all explained. So it was kind of like the Anne Radcliffe Gothic novels, where whatever seemingly supernatural thing was going on, you ended up being this one person who was trying to frighten these other people out of their money or something like that, So you had a lot of movies like that. We did have the great Lon Chaney, and I'm talking about Lon Chaney Sr., who played in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, who did of course, The Phantom of the Opera, I think is probably his best film. He was really great at doing the stage makeup. If you haven't watched, if you're not a silent film fan, and you're not really crazy about watching a lot of them, you at least have to watch Phantom of the Opera. Such a wonderful film. If you're a monster movie fan, if you're a horror film fan, because Lon Chaney's, it was just brilliant in that movie. But again, Phantom of the Opera isn't a supernatural character. It's an actual person, posing as the Phantom in that theater, demented as he is, deformed and demented and so forth. Lon Chaney also did a movie with Todd Browning, who would go on to direct Dracula, called London After Midnight. And this was also a silent film. Todd Browning was wanting to do a vampire movie, perhaps wanting to even do a Dracula movie. and he wanted to work with Lon Chaney. So they did this movie called London After Midnight. Again, the idea is that Hollywood thought America wasn't quite ready for a movie that really had a supernatural element to it. So if it looked such supernatural, it was always explained in the end. And London After Midnight, Todd Browning would go on to remake it later in his career with Bela Lugosi. It was called what's it called? Shadow of the Vampire? I'm blanking on the name of it, but he remade it as a talkie with Bela Lugosi later. It's a good film. But he did it first with Lon Chaney, who's this detective who poses as this vampire character. And Lon Chaney was set to star in Dracula when they were going to do it. So it was, they just didn't think America was ready for real, true supernatural content. When they got the idea to do it, it was because, things were changing. We had the Depression coming about, happening in the 30s. Americans desperately needed escapism. You also had their life. Many Americans' life was riddled with such horrors in their everyday life that if we're going to see bad guys or horrors on the screen, let's contextualize them in a clear monster. Let me give all the horrors in my life a clear monster face. Go ahead and make it a real supernatural monster. That's an easier recontextualization as well, So if you're going for escapism, but you're also going to see the vicissitudes of your life worked out on screen in a story, yeah, make it a real monster. That's what great, good monster films are for. So Dracula was the first American Hollywood film that actually had a true blue supernatural creature in it, which was, of course, Bela Lugosi's brilliant portrayal of Dracula. I'm going to take a little break there and check in with some chats there, because I don't know how, I'm going to go a little farther with it, but I don't want to go too far, because I'm thinking maybe I need to do its own. We need to give the Universal monster movies and the Paramount films that were done, the classic Hollywood monster movies, their own kind of night or session or stream to go in through and move through. Crimson Peak. Thank you, Horrid Films. That was the name of that Tom Hiddleston film I was blanking on the title of. Crimson Peak. Yeah. All right, let me see. First of all, let me see if I missed any super chats. Studio Super gave one. Said, The Cat and the Canary sounds like Scooby-Doo in a sense. Scooby-Doo is a great gateway into horror genre. Yeah, in fact, Scooby-Doo is about as close to horror as my dear Sound Engraver can get. She loves Scooby-Doo, though. We do watch some great Scooby-Doo classic cartoons together, because it's just good stuff. It's great stuff. But yeah, The Cat and the Canary was a really good silent film. It's James Whale, the guy who did Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Right after he did Frankenstein, just 1 second. Sound Engraver knows this about me. I know when my body's about to get the hiccups, and there's nothing I hate worse than getting the hiccups. Like, I'd almost rather throw up than get the hiccups. Because for me, when I get the hiccups, they last for like 2 hours. I can't shake them. They're like really violent, and I hate them. And I can feel it when like there's a little bubble in my chest or something's happening. And when that moment comes, I just have to stop, like calmly breathe and let the muscles just, relax and go away. Because, man, if I get them, I can't shake them, and they're horrible. Okay. Done with that. So, yes, I was talking about Cat and Canary. James Whale's film that he did right after Frankenstein is called The Old Dark House. I think that was the name of it. Also includes Boris Karloff. And it was very much not a remake of The Cat and the Canary, but very much sort of a in that vein type of film. And it was a good movie. He did that before he did The Invisible Man, and eventually moved on to Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah, you guys are really giving some love to Lon Chaney there, Man of a Thousand Faces. Yeah, he's great. Oh no, Leia Plus says, hate to bring bad news, but Disney announced they're doing their take on Phantom of the Opera for young adults like Twilight. Oh, Disney, just stop. Just roll over and die already. Disney's just awful. Disney is awful. Yeah, Nathaniel Lisbaugh. I forgot to mention it is a lost film. Horrid Films. You mentioned that too. Yeah, there is a really great. There have been portions of the some film stills that have been found, production stills that were taken, to publicize the film, and they've taken that with what they've known of the movie and what's been said of the movie. And somebody on YouTube actually placed it on the channel, but they've done a video, and they so it's still shots interspersed with the title cards, and you can get the general gist of the story. Again, it's sad we don't have the real, film itself. So many great silent films are just lost now, which is such a tragedy. But yeah. Yeah, there was a Russian Dracula film. I didn't mention that, Ghost Planet, but you're right. There was a Dracula movie. It's actually they released a novel, which I actually have on my Christmas list. I need to try and get that. There's a novel version of the script, so we know the story of this Dracula, quote unquote Dracula movie. It wasn't really following the Dracula novel, but it used the name of the character, and it was an interesting take on the world. But yeah, that was a lost film as well as some Frankenstein movies, as you said, that were lost, or not Frankenstein films, but Frankenstein inspired movies. Took the name, took the sort of the idea, but not actual adaptations of the novel. Wouldn't get anything like that until we got the Universal film, which again isn't a perfect adaptation of the novel, obviously, but yeah. Let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, 33 at King Kong. Yeah, so JRR 24. Yeah, King Kong is a classic monster, classic Universal monster. I don't know if you call it supernatural, but certainly kind of like the Creature of the Black Lagoon. What if there were still some biological creatures that are undiscovered? And yeah, that was absolutely a big monster movie from the same time period, same era there. So Dracula took place in 31, and they rushed Frankenstein out. Took place in 31 as well. Paramount did Jekyll and Hyde, the incredible Ruben Mamelian Jekyll and Hyde classic movie. Because of the popularity of Dracula, they owned the rights to it because they had done a John Barrymore's silent film in the 20s. So they did a talkie version of it. Ruben Mamelian directed. It's wonderful. Miriam Hopkins, Frederick Hobart, some other people are in there. But amazing film. Probably the best Jekyll and Hyde iteration that's ever happened. And they just barely got it into 1931. I think it premiered like New Year's Eve or something like that. So that's technically a 31 film too. And then you had a lot of them just pouring out, 32, 33 with King Kong and the Mummy and all kinds of things were going. Yeah, it was a big era that we'll definitely have to cover. Definitely. Yeah, exactly right. That's what the Japanese did with their fears, like with the contextualizing the fears of atomic power and whatnot with Godzilla movies and all the kaiju and stuff. Definitely. Imaginative Hobbyist says, fun fact, Tim Burton was offered to direct a live-action Scooby-Doo movie back in 1990s with full creative control, but he turned it down to direct Superman Lives. I did not know that. That'd have been interesting. I know there are mixed feelings on the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. I never saw the second one, but I gotta say, I liked the first one. I liked it. Is it a perfect movie? No. Or is it a perfect take on the Scooby-Doo universe? No, but it was just fun. It was just dumb fun. And what I probably loved even more than the movie was the trailer. I thought the trailer was so great. The teaser trailer, because I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember being in the theater, and it was a dark sort of gothic night. There was a mansion, and the camera was like you were like perspective going through the I think up into the mansion front doors and through the hallways, and the narration all the time is going, in these times, we need a hero. Only one hero can rise to the occasion. And you see the silhouette, and it's Batman, basically. It's, the ears and the square head. And I'm thinking, oh, man, they're doing another Batman movie? And then he turns around, and it's actually Scooby with his ears, and he's like, oh, me? I was like, bravo. That was a well-done teaser trailer. Let's see what else is going on. I haven't seen Gerard Butler's Phantom of the Opera under Hernandez. I know there have been, of course, Claude Rains did a Phantom of the Opera famously back in the day. Nothing really touches Lon Chaney, but Claude Rains is good. But there have been a lot of, of course, the Broadway version of it. Phantom of the Opera is one of those timeless tales. Private Eye said, yeah, it's actually said that the OG Phantom is lost due to splicing through the years. A lot of it, yeah. A lot of the old movies, well, even the Jekyll and Hyde, Ruben Mamalian's Jekyll and Hyde from 31 was lost for a while because when, I think it was MGM that bought out Jekyll and Hyde from Paramount. I might have that wrong. It might be the other way around. But in the 40s, just like 10 years later, and they said, well, let's do our own version. So they did Spencer Tracy, Lana Turner, Ingrid Bergman, another great film, wonderful film. But they tried to kind of suppress the Mamalian film so that it was lost for a long time. But eventually people really did do some great detective work. They found a lot of the pieces, and they restored it in ways that's just amazing now. There's a great Blu-ray out that has restored the movie, and they're still thinking that there's maybe some pieces or scenes or a couple little things that they might be missing just because, yeah, it's just sad how films weren't really taken care of back in the day. Matthew Flynn, Gladiator of Caun. I know I'm not saying that right again, but oh well. You know me. You just got to stick with that. You told me about it once. Caun, I don't know. If you want modern Gothic stories, 40K is not a bad choice. Black Templars and Night Lords especially. Matthew Flynn's always here to clue us into Transformers and 40K. Warhammer 40K. Yes, and Proctor, the negatives they use, the type of film they use was prone to being very flammable. Yeah. Studio Super, thank you very much for the super chat there. Said, would you say some of Star Trek, the original series, best elements delved into horror? I say because it deals with the unknown. It makes it seem like horror. I love the Star Trek, the original series. That's my favorite. That's Star Trek to me. Not crazy about the Next Generation. I get why people like it. That's fine. It's just not my thing. The original series is Star Trek to me. And what I loved about it too is that it really it embraced the pulp nature of it. Gene Roddenberry, when he had the power and the time and did Next Generation, it was really far more social preaching. And the original series had a lot of his ideals and values in it, but it was more organic storytelling. It was wagon train in space. It was swashbuckling Western frontiersmen, but in space. And you're right. A lot of the, unknowns that they would encounter were not horror, like scary. I mean, it's television on early 60s, or 60s, but it's not the, it would have been frightening or weird concepts, weird scenarios and whatnot, dealing with these aliens and stuff. So yeah, I think it drew from the genre as well. Definitely. Final Fantasy said, how could you do this to my favorite story? What story? What'd I do, Final Fantasy fan? Did I say something about what'd I do? What's your favorite story? What did I trash for you? Oh, the Phantom of the Opera is Twilight. Oh, you're talking about Disney. Okay, gotcha. Not me, Disney. Yeah. The Phantom of the Opera is Twilight. Are you kidding me? I never underestimate the stupidity of film executives in general, but certainly Disney. I mean, just absurd. Thank you for the, Kong was RKO Pictures, not Universal. Yeah, I think I said Universal Horror. I meant like classic monster movie, but yeah, thank you for the clarification. You're right. Definitely. Studio Super said, Creature from the Black Lagoon. My boy just wanted to go for a swim and check out a pretty lady. My boy was innocent. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the pathos, monsters, the ones who are, what am I doing? Like Frankenstein, it has to be created. And Creature of Black Lagoon, they stumble into his domain. Yeah, it was Sarah Michelle Gellar played Daphne in the Scooby-Doo film. All right. About to wrap things up here. I'm just checking into the chat and stuff. Imaginative Hobbyist says, what would you say is the scariest scene in a movie for you that isn't horror? one for me is the Joker discovering his appearance in the mirror. That's a creepy moment, especially when you're a kid. That's creepy. I don't know. I'd have to think about that because a lot of movies I would think of, oh, that creeped me out. I mean, as a kid, speaking of Tim Burton films, let's go back to his first one, The Adventures of or Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Come on, tell him that was it Marge sent you? Was her name? Large Marge or whatever? The ghost truck driver that picks him up. Which now you see that face when she, goes full out ghost to him, and it's kind of cheesy. But as a kid, man, that creeped me out. A lot of people I think had that experience. Here are some other ones. Yeah, I remember watching Return to Oz, the scene where Dorothy's having to walk through the hallway where the witch keeps all of her heads. That was creepy. Large Marge. Yeah, it was Large Marge. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm probably going to wrap it up here in a minute, like I said, but check any last minute comments or questions or whatever. Yeah, Nathaniel Isbell, plenty of movies in the 80s. 80s weren't afraid to, 80s children's entertainment was so much better than even the 90s. I know that we still had some good stuff in the 90s, but I think certainly by the 90s, it started to be like, children's films need to be educational. They need to be, like I said, there was still great stuff in the 90s. Don't come at me, you 90s kids, but it was starting, we start like with the Blues Clues type stuff and Eureka's Castle. And, it was starting to get a little bit more of like everything needs to be handled with kid gloves for kids, Barney and so forth. 80s was just like, psh, screw that. Give them a Never Ending Story. Let them watch Dark Crystal. It was, it made for some really good stuff. Studio Super said, I know that for everyone, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh, yeah, with the face melting. That's one, too. Not me, though. I played the Lego games first, so I was prepared. So you played the Lego... Man, the difference in generations. You played the Lego Indiana Jones games before you saw the movies. Yeah, at least you saw them. Yeah, that's right, Andre Hernandez, when the Joker killed the guy with the joy buzzer. That was pretty... That was pretty rough too, and then like laughing in his face. He's a little hot under the collar here. He's like, you're a great man, but I'm glad you're dead. Jack Nicholson's Joker was brilliant. Absolutely does not get enough credit. That was an absolute brilliant. Like I said, the movie was far from the iconic, perfect Batman movie, but I still think it was the closest we got to it on the big screen. And man, Jack Nicholson's Joker was something. It was good stuff. All right. Oh, the Wheelers. That's right, Electric Barbarella. That's the other thing that freaked me out from Return to Oz was the Wheelers. Oh, man. That kind of gives me the chills just thinking about them now. I remember when they were like, you could just hear the wheels creak, squeak, 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 and you knew they were around. Oh, man. Yeah. And then, the penguin and then Batman Returns, and the penguin bit the guy's nose. That was ghastly. I heard Danny DeVito tell a story about that. There's a scene when that little monkey, the circus monkey for the gang that he had, was supposed to like come deliver a message to him or whatever, and the monkey just went nuts, like something got triggered, and he latched on, because monkeys will, if they get triggered, they'll try to rip your face or your genitals off. I mean, chimpanzees are wicked little creatures, and this was a little monkey, but it jumped at Danny DeVito's groin area and just started like biting and scratching him. Now, luckily he had the penguin suit on, so it was like he couldn't, it was well protected there, but like, man, that's terrifying. Could you imagine a little monkey just, no thanks. You hear people like, oh, wouldn't a monkey be cute? I'd like to see a monkey. Heck no. Heck no. I've heard way too many stories about what they can do. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up now. Hit my hour mark there, but it was a good stream. I think I got some good stuff I can cut out as a video and continue the exploration of horror fiction, horror literature, and whatnot. We did stop a little short, but like I said, I think it's best to give the classic Hollywood monster movies their own stream, or at least start them off in their own stream and see how far we get. I think that would be a good idea. So maybe come by for that next week. I do need to go ahead and get September's. So now we're in September. I need to get September's episode of Iconicast podcast out, in which maybe I'll cover the Universal monsters on that, and we'll see. On the one hand, we got so much time between now and Halloween. On the other hand, we're just doing these things weekly, so it's just like what, 6 more or something, 7 maybe, before we get there. So we'll also do some deep dives. I really want to talk about the Wolfman when we get to that film, and look at that in the Werewolf of Paris novel and see how the Wolfman icon is developed from Strange Case Dr. Jekyll Mr. Hyde, ultimately Dracula itself. So we'll talk about that. More to come. Lots more to come. Matthew Flynn, thank you for the super chat there. Said, is it weird that I like the Angel show more than Buffy? I never did see all of Angel. I don't think it's weird at all. I like both of them, but I never did see all of Angel, so I can't really speak to that. Samuel Proctor says, I think the 90s had more of the growing split between kids' entertainment, on the one hand, and cartoons that were getting more elaborate. Yeah. All right, folks. I just did, yeah. Sound Engraver's looking out for you, Matthew Flynn. She made sure I got your super chat. But she's listening, and it's a delay, so she wanted to come over here and make sure that I got it. Yeah. I thought I heard her coming over here. I was like, what, did my audio go out or something? So, great chat. Appreciate the comments, guys. Appreciate the approach, the super chats, what's the word I'm looking for? Support, but also appreciate just you guys being here, clicking the like, and throwing out your chats in there. A lot of fun to see. Curse of the Werewolf. We'll definitely talk about that great Hammer horror film. So lots of great stuff to come. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the True Blue, what do we call it? Monster movies you love. There we go. See you guys next time.